Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on opportunities for data science in the new economy. I welcome all of you from this. I welcome all of you from AISECT. This is one of the many such learning webinars which we have been organizing over the last 1.5 years, dedicated to and aimed at students, faculty members, aspiring students, working professionals, and with the overall objective of letting the technology take center stage and letting the learning and knowledge sharing get accelerated using the technology and the digital medium which all of us are today so used to. So I'm very happy to have today's speaker with us, and today's topic is also very pertinent. All of us are excited to hear and learn more about this topic today, which is essentially data science. All of us know that data science has emerged as one of the most sought after careers, and that is because data science has percolated and has penetrated all the industry sectors uniformly today. So be it BFSI, be it energy, be it engineering, be it IT and digital skills, of course, data science requirements are everywhere. As of today, there are shortage of more than 1 lakh data science jobs in India, and as the demand increases from the industry side, the response from the education and the skilling fraternity also has to match with the increase in demand. That has been the endeavor at AISECT in terms of coming up with new specializations, new opportunities for learning, and new courses which match the changing demand from the industry side. So in that context, data science is the topic for today. We have a very esteemed guest with us today, who somebody who's an authority on this subject. I would like to give a hearty welcome from AISECT and from all our audience today who have tuned in to Mr. Avik Sarkar from ISB for joining us as the subject matter expert for today. Welcome, Mr. Avik, to this webinar. Sir, you are on mute.
Yes, sorry, I didn't realize that. Yes, so thanks for that introduction, and really thanks for inviting me, ISET, to this session. Yes, as Mr. Siddharth was telling, data science has really emerged as one of the very prominent areas as we start to look into it. So let me start my discussion today, and this
So
is
just,
really
1 minute, I'll take this 1 minute more, sir.
yes, yes,
I would like to introduce you formally to
sure,
all the
sure.
audience which has joined us today. For everyone's benefit, Dr. Sarkar is a TEDx speaker and has been nominated among the top 10 data scientists in India, right? Back in 2017 by the Analytics India magazine. He's also nominated as a LinkedIn influencer in the technology space in 2015, and has been continuously engaging in a lot of projects, initiatives, discussions around big data, AI, data science, etc. Dr. Sarkar is also involved as an advisor at various government committees, including the Government e-Marketplace, the Technology Advisory Committee, and many other committees at the central and state level. He is also serving on the academic advisory board of many training institutions, many colleges and institutions. Right now, he's associated with the Indian School of Business, ISB Hyderabad, and he's held diverse roles in positions like product strategist, scientist, policy advocate, product development, customer interaction, etc. in his diverse and vast career. And because of his domain knowledge in this field, we are very proud that he has agreed to address this session today. So just to set the context for today's discussion, uh, today we would like to understand, of course, what is the scope for data science in the coming years for the industry at large? And what are some of the applications and use cases which the industry can look forward to from data science? And more than the industry perspective, what should be the response from the education and the skilling fraternity towards this challenge? What kind of courses, what kind of specialization should one work at? If you do a random search, you get umpteen number of choices for data science courses today. So what is the ideal way in choosing the data science specialization as your career choice, and what are the parameters which students should look at while choosing a course like this? On the other hand, in terms of faculty members, there are many teachers also today on this webinar, and in general it is a topic of discussion. So how should the faculty members upskill themselves to be able to teach and train on this subject with authority? So we are going to have a mix of both industry perspective as well as the education perspective of data science. I once again welcome Mr. Avik Sarkar to the webinar today. This is around, I've lost count. This is probably the 180th or 190th webinar in terms of our knowledge series, and we are all looking forward to today's session. So without further ado, I will now hand it over to Mr. Avik Sarkar for his discussion, for his talk, for his presentation. We would take in questions towards the end. I request everybody who has any questions to put it on the Q&A panel. Put it on the Q&A panel. We would be able to take it towards the end. Any other comments or feedback, you can use the chat panel for doing that. So over to you, Mr. Avik, for your presentation.
So thanks, Mr. Siddharth, for the kind introduction. So let me share my screen and then start immediately. So as the introduction was given, we'll be talking about career options in data science and AI particularly, and what is in store for us as we look into this new data economy per se. So those are some of the areas that we will talk about today, as Mr. Siddharth was talking about. And really, it's nice to address all of you. And I see there is a large number of people who have gathered for this talk, and that's really interesting how we can make it more knowledgeable and interesting for everyone. So before I go into the aspect of data science and AI, there was a survey done by the World Economic Forum. So they looked at the leading job roles in the next 10 to 20 years. And World Economic Forum is a leading body there. And they came up with the leading job roles. And you can look into this report. It's the Future of Jobs report that the World Economic Forum came into. And this report talks about some of the emerging job roles that will come. And I'll talk about them. Where one is definitely the care economy, where I think the care and healthcare comes in as a person. Sales, marketing, and content remains an important thing, because whatever you make and you create, you will have that important part of selling it. One of the major job roles that will be there in the next 10, 20 years will be on data and artificial intelligence. And this is the area that we will be focusing on today. Now that we are generating huge amounts of data, how can you make sense out of that? So that is the big area that comes here. Engineering and cloud operations also becomes very important, and that's also related to the whole aspect of data, as we say, because when we also say we talk about applications or hosting some data on some cloud or on some server, these are the type of skills that will be required as we move forward with data and the new emerging economy, where we are in the digital world and a lot of the interaction that we are having is happening digitally. Next is product development. And it is not only product development like developing a physical product, like say a car or a microwave or a fridge that we use, but it also developing products like say the Amazon platform where you buy and sell products, or the Uber platform that you use to book your taxi when you want to get a ride. So that aspect of product development also becomes very important here. People and culture remains very important, and that is exactly the part of the recruitment world, the HR world, human resource, and how you manage the resources around that. That becomes one of the important aspect there. And the last one that we see also emerging a lot is the green professionals. Green professionals is because in today's date we see a lot of focus around the green economy. How can we make a business more sustainable? How can you do the same thing by consuming less power and electricity? So green technology has become a very important aspect, and green professionals will come and play an important role there. So these are the top level broad areas that I mentioned here only. Now, when you go into each of these areas, you can find a lot of job roles there, but I don't want to go into that level of detail because I want to focus on the data and the artificial intelligence part. But this is a report that you can find in the public domain from the World Economic Forum on the future of jobs, which will give you a very good overview on the areas that you should look into if you want to remain, if you're looking for job and opportunities in the next 10, 20 years, which will be mostly the young people who are attending this, or even if it's faculty members. These are the broad areas in which a lot of the courses that you can look to develop in the future. So with that high level broad structure, now let's start move to the aspect about massive data being generated today. We see a large amount of data being generated on a regular basis today. And how is this data being generated? We want to deliver, we want to order some food. There is some data being generated because we are making a transaction either in Zomato or Food Panda or Swiggy or something like that. You want to do online shopping, you are generating data as you are doing your interactions on the online shopping, either it's Flipkart or Myntra or Jabong or Amazon. Ride sharing, you want to book a cab to go from one place to other, you are generating data which is available with Uber or Ola. Even if you want to just get entertainment, online entertainment, as we call them, OTTs, now that because of the corona and the COVID situation, the traditional cinema halls are not available and we cannot go and visit them. You you might be using Amazon Prime or Netflix or Z5 or one of these platforms, and that is again generating a large volumes of data as we talk about. You want to use it for your bill payment on a day-to-day basis, and then you generate a lot of this data on any of these platforms as we see. Or the most favorite one, social media. You just want to socialize with your friends and family, and you do an interaction on the social media, and a large amount of data is being generated on the social media just based on what you are doing. So a large amount of data is being generated every moment we are doing any transaction. Like even if you are posting something on social media, that is generating a huge amount of data as we see. So this is the chart that gives you a very good overview about the amount of data that is being generated every minute. You can see Instagram, about 3.4 lakh stories are being posted every minute. Twitter gains about 319 new users every minute. YouTube has about 500 video uploads, 500 hours of video upload every minute. And then the list continues. On Facebook, about 1.5 lakh photos are being uploaded every minute. And this is what we are telling is the interaction that is happening every minute. On WhatsApp, you can see the user shares is about a large number. About 41 million WhatsApp shares are happening every minute. So this is a huge volume of data that has been generated to us, and this is made available. Now, how you as a professional or you as someone who wants to get into the industry, make sense of this data and make it use for business benefit. or can you create a career out of the analysis of the data? And that is where the crux of the whole data science or artificial intelligence comes into. The whole thing that we are talking about is about the data economy. And I want you to focus on two particular companies here. And this is the amount of earnings the big five companies in the US have. You see, 88% of the revenues of Alphabet, Google's parent companies, is coming from advertisements. 88% of the revenues are coming from advertisement. Compared to that, Facebook, 97% of the revenues is coming through advertisement. So you see this revenue that these companies are earning today, a huge volume of that is coming from the data that is being generated, because advertisements are all targeted advertisement based on the user profile and the data that is there. So a large part of it is data being generated and business models that have been innovated on top of this data. So we talk about a large volume of data being generated, and let me bring you to the concept of big data as we talk about. The 4 V's of big data that we talk about is that the huge volume of data being generated. The data is being generated from the web, on the sensors, from the mobiles, from videos, from speech, social media, and large number of digital data. The second is the variety of the data. That's the second V. We are talking about structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. So a large volume of data that we are talking about. And what is structured data, what is unstructured data? We'll just go into some of these things just in some time. Next is the speed in which the data is being generated. So the huge velocity in which data is being generated, that is the next V that comes in. And when we are talking about huge volumes of data, there is the aspect of trustworthiness and cleanliness of the data that has to be have to be dealt with, and that is where the veracity of the data and the trustworthiness of the data becomes a very important factor as we talk about big data. So these are the 4 V's that makes the interesting part of big data. Now we come to the career options just to deal with data. What are the career options that you have? Now that you are generating huge volumes of data at your end, what are the type of job roles that are required today just to handle the data? We are not going yet into the data science aspect, but this is just the managing of the data, the huge volumes of data that is there. One is the data collection. So how can you collect this data in a meaningful manner? Often you will have to go and also collect some subsidiary data through surveys or doing some questionnaires or things of that nature. And that is where the data collection becomes an important. So data collection person, and that's a job role that you have to use. And market research firms use a lot of this data collection. The second is a data quality analyst. Once you are storing a large volumes of data, how can you check what is the quality of this data? Can you do some quick check and check the quality of this data? Because this data often can have some mistakes, some errors. So keeping the check on the quality is very important. So data quality analyst is the important job role that comes. Data wrangling is basically managing the data and doing some basic transformation on the data. Like say you have some daily some data that you are getting every second. Now you want to give what was the overall picture of the data for that whole day. So you aggregate the data that is coming every second and you give an entire picture of the data for the entire day. And that is where data wrangling plays an important role in doing some of those things. Data engineer. So data engineer maintains the data and also arranges the data and makes it available for upstream analysis. So if you have to analyze the data going forward, then data engineer plays a very important role going there. Database management. Often, if there is small amounts of data, you can store them in flat files. But if you have a data source where say multiple people are writing the data, say Facebook or something of that nature, where people from multiple places are actually writing data over there. In that case, you would need a database to store the data, which requires understanding of database and knowledge of database, which becomes a prerequisite on this data journey. Data architect. This is a bit of a senior level role. Here you sort of decide what type of framework is required to store the data. Instead of just analyzing the data, this is like a planning activity. Like as an architect who comes and gives you the design of a house, when you're trying to build a house, here the data architect will come and tell, okay, if this is the total amount of data that is required to be there, then a data architect will come and tell you, okay, what sort of framework you need to have, how you should store the data, what is the type of technologies that you use, that you want should use for storing the data, and that is where the data architect plays a very important role there. Cloud management. The data that we are writing has to be written to some server. And today, a lot of these servers are available on the cloud, where there are vendors who are managing this cloud. So you will need to often manage this cloud to get a good sense of the data, and cloud management skills becomes a very important job role. For the purpose of for upstream data science and artificial intelligence, often data annotation becomes an important activity. So say in a particular text, you highlight and tell which are the data of your interest, or if there are some image data, then you annotate that image data with the type of entities that they are linked to. So data annotation becomes a very important activity when we start looking into the entire data science journey. And the last one is the big data architect. So data architect is if you have to have a data which is on a normal server, but if you are storing your data on a big data server, which is actually distributed in nature, so the data is distributed across multiple servers, then a big data architect becomes very important. A lot of these job roles that you will see also maps with the National Skills Development Framework that comes out with the skilling ministry, the Ministry of Skill Development and National Skill Development. So they have defined a lot of the job roles that are there for data, and these have been taken, some of them, and based on the market need, this has been expanded based on the market need and the National Skills Development Framework. So here we talk about data, the huge volumes of data that has been generated, and how do you make sense of the data, or how do you store the data meaningfully, and the type of job roles that are engaged in there. Now let's come to the data science part, or data analytics part, as we say. And when we move to the data analytics part, we start looking data into two broad divisions. The first is structured data, or numerical data, as we call them. So these are data which are numerical in nature, and that can actually sit in an Excel file. And when you go into unstructured data, it can be like, say, free flowing text or comments, or say the audio data or video data. That is what the unstructured data we come into. So the easier data to deal with is the structured data, as we talk about. Here we look into some of the complexities that are involved with data as we start upon, and what is the type of advantages that you go. And there are three broad areas that when you start looking into data, you start with. You start with descriptive data analytics or data science. Then you do the predictive and the prescriptive, as you can see on the right. And they are basically the journey that you take as you start handling the data and start playing with the data that is available to you. The first important aspect is the descriptive analytics or business intelligence. So that tells you answers to how are you doing, are you on track or are you off track, what should we do next, and things of this nature. So, and basically what you end up doing is that you take a large amount of data and do some dashboard based on that, or scorecard or reporting, or some analysis and planning based on the data that is there. And the type of job roles that will be interesting is, say, you need to analyze the data and make sense about how your business is performing. That's a very simple role that descriptive analytics or business intelligence helps you do. You basically analyze your data and ensure that it is on the right direction and line. One very simple thing that anyone ends up doing, any organization ends up doing, is the analysis of their sales data. So say you can look into the sales data, and this chart shows you at the bottom how the sales has varied across region. This shows how the sales has varied across products. This showed you how the sales has varied across the sales representative. It can be also be sales representatives or suppliers or distributors. What are the opportunities that you have? And at a high level, you get a sense of how your revenue is doing for the current year as compared to your previous year. So these are some of the simple things that you need to do. And if you see, this is what I am presenting here is a simple view on the chart or for the sales. Now this very aspect can actually change from the context that you are looking into. So say if you are university, you might want to look into how your different courses have performed. Maybe you can look into the attendance of those various courses, how the different courses has performed, how the marks of each of these courses were for these different courses, how the students have performed across a range of different courses. And if you have the same course running across multiple campuses, because I see that you have multiple universities or institutions under your brand name, see the same courses running to three different places, then you can actually compare and see if the course is running across three different places, then how it is playing a different role there as compared to over here. So these are some of the things that you can play an important role and understand how the dynamics of it is playing through. You have to define some KPIs, and basically you can measure the performance of it around those KPIs. This is a very strong area as we go upon, and we will see there are a lot of career options that are there in this area. And a very important one is reporting and dashboarding. So reporting and dashboarding is basically a very basic skills that you can start with your journey of reporting and dashboarding using Excel. So Microsoft Excel provides you some of these facilities. And when you are starting on your data journey, it's always good to start with reporting and dashboard using Microsoft Excel, because that gives you a good overview as we start. And there are also a lot of inbuilt options that are there in that is been provided. In Excel as you start on the reporting and dashboarding. And that's a business role that is hugely popular across any business industry or that we see. Data visualizer, as you start to making your reporting and dashboarding, you can then go on to different things, like you might want to see the sales for a particular region and then drill down from there to the particular states. So that is the type of dynamics that you might need to have at time. So that is where data visualizer becomes an important aspect. And you can then start, when you talk about data visualization, you can then start looking into different tools that help you become a champion in data visualization. So one of them can be, say, Python or R or D3, some of the packages that have been used in Python. Can help you become a data visualizer. Then you can look into some of the commercial tools which are hugely popular in the market, like say Tableau, Power BI, or Click, that will also help you understand some of those technologies very well. And also helps you very easy to understand and pick up these tools. Python and R requires you to do some amount of coding or programming, whereas if you're using Tableau or Power BI, you do not need to do any amount of coding, and it is more easy for the domain people to use it. Business intelligence analyst becomes a very important role that we see, and data storyteller or is a very important role that also emerges out. So what happens is that you basically are trying to see a business and data that is being generated from that business. So when in reporting and dashboarding, you start with some simple visualizations to understand trends in the business as an individual. And then you start doing complex visualization using data visualization expert or a business intelligence expert using tools like say Python, R, Tableau or Power BI. And then say if you are an employee and if you have to present to your higher management how your business is performing and what are the top actions that you need to tell, in that case you will have to narrate a business story. And what you start with is that you start with some of the top trend. You can tell that okay, the sales for this particular region is coming down, and then you try and come up with some explanations about why the sales in that particular region might be coming down, and that is where the data storyteller comes into. You then need the stories that you are talking, that your data is telling in the terms of a story. And some of those these tools like Tableau and Power BI already has a storyboarding facility, because telling one story after another, some chart after another, becomes a very important aspect over here. So what business intelligence tells you is that what is happening now. You have to move from here to maybe predict what will happen in the future. So that is what a lot of the businesses want. And if you take a view of the car, you see while you are driving the car, you are looking towards the front. So if you look into from your rear view, it will be dashboard, sensors, reports, and alarm that will help you understand how your business has performed in the past. And that is where business intelligence is very helpful. It gives you a view of the past, how your business has been performing. Your rear side view gives you what is happening now, but that is only for a moment, maybe only for one day or 1 week is the current state that you are in. But what you really need to understand is that how your business will perform in the future based on this current trend. And that is where predictive analytics becomes very important. And that is the next pillar of business analytics that we look into. That is the predictive analytics pillar. So the predictive analytics looks into the data and helps you understand the data and then take some strategic decisions. So what are type of strategic decisions that you can take based on the data? Either you want to identify some fraud or attract some new customer or retain existing customer or grow your customer base. That anything that you want to predict based on your data, I think that is what you can do from this. Predicting the future is a very important thing that any business would want. So the first predicting the future is, say you want to run a marketing campaign and it actually cost you some amount of rupees to run your marketing campaign. So instead of doing a marketing campaign to the entire list of all the customers, you prioritize the list of customers who are most likely to respond to a particular type of campaign. And you send the marketing campaign to only those people. What is the benefit you get? The benefit you get is that the success of your campaign is much higher, one, and you end up spending much less money in the business. So that is one of the important things. So predicting the future becomes very important in such role. Approved, maybe a loan that you have applied for a bank, may be approved based on that. Or maybe you have applied for a course in some university and your application is approved or rejected. And how can the university look into all of these? And often they might use some sort of predictive algorithm that will look into the various aspects of course, of the historic scores of the students and take a decision based on them. So often this sort of things are used a lot in the real world, where you do not have humans to screen through all the applications, and you actually use some of these automated methods to make sense of these things. A large area where we see a use of prediction is on the online shopping. Now that we are really glued on to online shopping and we really like our online shopping, a lot of the things that you will have seen is that recommendation keeps coming to you. Based on a particular product that you are viewing now, you tend to get recommendations of what are the other products. As you can see on the bottom, the telling you may like this product, or these are also customers who brought this, also brought this. So these are some of the recommendations that are coming from your product. As you continue to see one product, you can look into some of these aspects. So these are some of the things that are there. Now also this sort of recommendations has a lot of things. As you are seeing a particular movie on your favorite OTT channel, you get recommendation for other movies, and that is again coming through some recommendation engine. This movie recommendation. You go into any area. While you are viewing something, you get recommendation for some other things. Even for say studying, say Coursera or edX, after you have completed one course or registered for one course, you get recommendation of other courses over there. And that is where this recommendation plays a very important role. Based on your profile, they will give you prediction on what are the type of things that you might like. And this is a large area which is evolving, and a lot of things happening here. The third area that I want to talk about is the prescriptive analytics optimization. So say you are running a textile manufacturing plant, and you manufacture about 10,000 units of shirts every month. And for Diwali, which is coming, say about 4 months away now, you are likely to get an order of, say, in a single month, about 50,000 units. So can you fulfill that order or not? That's the first question that comes. So whether you can fulfill that order or not, so you have to look into various things. How long can your machine runs, and can the machine runs double shift? How long, how much raw materials do you have? Do you have adequate raw material to fill in the demand, or you need to wait for some more time to get the raw material supplies? You might need more skilled workforce to fill in the gaps that are there. So so adequate workforce training is also required, becomes an important part. So looking at all of these elements, can you what's the best decision that you can take on delivering those 5,000 units? So these are all the constraints that comes into your system. So say instead of running your machine for the whole time, you can run your machine only for some amount of the day, or there might be a delay in the raw material supply. There can be a lesser amount of credit limit that you get from the bank. So these are some of the constraints that can come into your system, and based on that, if you have to take a decision, the type of decision that you take is based on the optimization. And optimization plays a very important role in such decision making. What are the career options in predictive and prescriptive analytics? And this is one of the crux of the main data science world that we look into. One of the very prominent job roles comes in here. The first is a predictive analytics expert, who will take the data and depending on the business need, will make predictions based on the data. Next is the data modeler, who takes in the data and applies some machine learning algorithm or statistical algorithm and models the data based on some previous trends. The third is the statistician, who looks into the data and tries to derive some basic statistics from that data and give some trends on what is happening and what's the best thing that can be done on the data. The fourth is that you do some statistical modeling based on the data, which is very important. The machine learning engineer will take this data and try to understand the business need and fine tune the learning algorithms for this data that can be used. Optimization expert can be there, and some of these roles will actually lead out to a data scientist, where the person understands some amount of data skills, some amount of statistical skills, some amount of machine learning skills, and also data science skills. It was nice when I was looking into the brochures of AICT that your university actually offers some of these courses on data science, which has some of these elements of data science and AI, which is a very nice course that you have developed here at your university. So I really congratulate you for that part. If you look into artificial intelligence is not a new phenomenon per se. We see early mention of artificial intelligence in 1950s. Then a large phase during 1960s and 90s was spent on the AI winter. So there was a lot of discussion on artificial intelligence, but it was limited to the world of movies, in the fictional world, and very little was happening in the real world. Then the IBM Deep Blue defeated the chess champions Gary Kasparov in 1996, which was still a logical game. And then we see that IBM Watson defeat the greatest players in the game of Jeopardy in 2011. So it is a very weird quiz show where the answer is given and the contestant has to guess the questions based on the answer and based on the clues that are given to them. Then we look at ImageNet, where we have AI, or the artificial intelligence, performing better than the humans in the image recognition task. And then we have a chatbot which is actually performing better than humans. So we see a lot of emergence of AI in the recent years. And why is that? Algorithms have been there for a very long time. So what has really changed? What has really changed is that today, the rate in which we are getting digital data, that has really increased. So the amount of digital data has really increased. If we are talking about the 1960s and the 70s and the 80s, we had not digitized our businesses like a retail store or online shopping and all these things. These were not digitalized. And now that everything is digitalized, we see a large transformation going into this phase. Then we see the storage. In the 1980s, if we had to store 1 gigabyte of data, it would have cost us $500,000 US. And today, storing 1 gigabyte of data is less than 2 cents that we see. So even if you had huge volumes of data, just storing that data would have been a huge challenge. Now that part has become very simple. And the last but not the least is that you would also need access to high power compute facilities to work on this data. And cloud services were not available in the past. And now with cloud services, anyone can subscribe to the cloud for some time and do their computation and fulfill their computation need and then subscribe and then end the subscription. So these are some of the benefits that you get with the new data economy that is evolving, that you have large amount of digital data, the ease of storage and the compute that helps you do a lot of these things. Artificial intelligence is hugely popular for dealing with unstructured data. What is unstructured data? Today, if we are talking about data, maybe only a small percentage of data is the numerical or structured data. The rest, a large amount of data that is being generated there is unstructured data. See, the video recording for this lecture is a stop of unstructured data. It's a video file that you look into. You can do the text transcription of what I'm speaking, and that will be a textual data. And that is again a unstructured data. Or you can look into the audio file of it, and that's again unstructured data. So most of the interaction that we do on a day-to-day basis is primarily unstructured data. Like the type of things that you would end up doing, like say you write a post on Facebook and people comment to it. That's a more of a unstructured data that we're looking into it. So organizations are storing a huge volumes of unstructured data, which is not currently being utilized for any business purpose or need. So you can see in text mining or content analytics, what we can do is that you can see an FIR in the middle, and the entity has been extracted from the FIR, as you can see on the right. And once these entities are extracted, then you can do a lot of very interesting things from the data, like say, you can do trend detection, pattern detection, and highlighting of anomalies, and a lot